All right, welcome to part 2 of Dietetic Internship FAQs. So in this section, I'm going to talk about the process to apply. I'm going to go through a little bit about DICAS. Then next, part 3 will actually be a walk through DICAS and D&D. But right now, I'm just going to talk about what's on the slides and kind of walk you through what's required for your internship application. So here's your process to apply. Your first one, which is probably going to take you quite a bit of time, is deciding which programs you're applying to. We talked about a lot of different things to consider in that part 1 section, so you'll want to do some research here. Part 2 is you complete your application through DICAS, which is what we're going to talk about most in this slide or in this presentation. And then we will talk briefly about complete ranking of your programs through D&D Digital. So there are 2 parts to actually applying once you determine which programs you're going to apply to. So a little bit about DICAS. This is just kind of some informational stuff. Most programs, traditional dietetic internships, do participate in this system. As a reminder, as I mentioned previously, the FEM graduate programs, many of them are not participating in this. So you could potentially have a program that you'll apply to that uses DICAS, and then maybe you have an FEMG that does not. So you'll have 2 different applications that you'll probably need to work on. There is a portal, and I'll show you that in the next video, but there's your web address. I often just Google DICAS, and it comes right up. There is a fee, of course, utilizing this application system. It's $50 for the first program, $25 for each additional program that you apply to. There are some amazing instructional videos on YouTube, and DICAS actually has their own YouTube channel. This is how I figured out how to use DICAS. When I was an intern, and this was many years ago, there was not a centralized application system. I had everything hard copy, paper-based. So I had to learn how to use this system to teach students how to use it. So their YouTube channel is really nicely done. So if you are struggling, you need more assistance, I highly recommend looking at their YouTube channel. The second part is D&D Digital. This is where you rank your programs that you are applying to. So you put them in the order that you would prefer to get into. So your first choice, second choice, third choice, however many programs you're applying to. For some of you, you may only be applying to 1, so you'll just rank your 1 program, your very first choice. There's your website for the program. They're due on the same deadline as DICAS, so that's February 15th for spring, September 25th for fall. Your application is not complete until you submit both parts, both DICAS and your D&D Digital ranking. Okay, there's one flat fee for D&D Digital of $55. Doesn't matter how many programs you apply to. You'll also find application timeline and list of programs on this D&D site as well. So if you need a reminder of the timeline, DICAS doesn't have that information for you. It's all going to be on D&D Digital. All right, so when you get into DICAS, there's a couple different sections. Well, there's a variety of sections that you're going to have to complete. But there's some things that are going to be specific that you'll want to pay attention to that can, I often get questions about, I guess, is where I'm going with this. And so I'm going to mention them here. But again, we'll go through the actual application here in the next video. So when you get to listing all of the colleges that you attended, it's going to give you an option for a DPD college or other university or college attended. The only DPD college that you will list is Arizona State University. Okay, if you went to another university and transferred here, maybe even if you have another degree, maybe you went to a community college, that's all fine and dandy. You're going to list all of those as other colleges. The only college you will list as DPD is ASU. You will send transcripts from every college you've ever attended. And I know some of you are sighing, like, oh my goodness, I have a lot to send. So this is one thing that you can start, working on, particularly if it's a school that you're not currently attending, like a community college or maybe a former university. You can start requesting those transcripts. You'll want to request your transcript from ASU to include the most recent courses. So, for example, sometimes I have students start their spring application in November of the previous year, and they want to start requesting their transcripts at that time. Well, the challenge or the problem is if you request your transcript in November, but you're applying to the spring match, that transcript that you're requesting will not have your fall coursework posted. So it's not your most recent one, because by the time you submit it in February, it's not showing your fall courses with grades. So you really need to wait until you're either if you're graduating and you've since graduated and are now applying, or maybe you're applying for spring match. You need to wait for your fall grades to be posted before you request your transcript from ASU. You will be asked in the DPD courses completed whether or not the course was professional or science, a science course. There is a DPD course list that's available to you. It's posted on both the NTR 400 Canvas shell as well as the Canvas, the ASU Dietetic Student Canvas site. Or you can email me, tracy.gergich@asu.edu, and I'm happy to send that to you. Okay, but you do need this list to help you input all of your DPD courses into DICUS, and you'll also upload a copy of this to your DICUS application. Internship directors use this as a reference sheet because they don't know, they have no idea what NTR 241 is. But when it's listed 241, human nutrition, okay, they understand what that means. So it's really used as a reference sheet for both the internship director and for you when you're inputting this information into your application. There is a fairly new option under when you're inputting your transcripts or you're inputting your courses. If you opted for a pass-fail, this came up more recently during the time of the pandemic when some courses decided not to provide an actual letter grade, but provided a pass-fail option instead. So you can list other under your transcript grade, and you can give, this essentially indicates a pass-fail option, okay? This is not seen as negative. It just doesn't impact your GPA positively or negatively. It just basically shows you took the class. You either passed it or failed it, but it doesn't impact your GPA at all. Okay, here's just a screenshot of what it looks like, all right, where it's going to be in the DICUS list or in your application where that transcript grade is. You can list it as other, okay, and it'll list it as pass-fail. They also added another section for COVID-19 designation. This will null the value of any grade that you entered. Basically, it doesn't count negatively or positively towards your GPA. But choosing COVID-19 will allow you to include the grade as it appears on your transcript and remove it from the GPA calculation in DICAS if that grade did not count in your GPA calculation from your college or university, right? So if it was a pass, fail, or satisfactory, unsatisfactory. So this should only be used for a class that did not count in your GPA calculation. I will say I don't know of many, at least of our DPD classes, that utilized pass-fail option during the pandemic, but potentially that could have impacted you. Maybe you took another class at a community college, or maybe there was a science course that utilized this designation that you would need to list this. This doesn't happen very often, but I wanted to point it out in the event that you had a pass-fail on your transcript and how you would list it. Okay, here's another screenshot of what it would look like and where to find it. In your DICUS application, you will also have a section with, it'll ask for your DPD contact. So you're going to put my information, my email address is listed there, and you will request a verification statement or a declaration of intent. Okay, that was essentially the document that's needed that says you're enrolled for your very last semester at ASU for DPD courses, and you're going to tell me, you'll need to email me specifically a list of the DPD classes that you're taking for your last semester. I have no idea what you guys take and in what order, so I rely on you to let me know what DPD class you have left in order for me to complete the declaration of intent on your behalf. Okay, so what happens is once you put my information in and request this document, I get an email that indicates you need this either document completed on your behalf. Okay, so I go in and complete those. If it's a declaration of intent, I will await an email from you. I may ping you with an email requesting that information just in order for me to get it completed by the deadline. A little bit about what is also required for DICUS. So transcripts, I mentioned that previously. You do need official transcripts. And there is a form, I'll show you where that's at in this next video, that's provided by DICUS that lists the specific address that you need to send these transcripts to. Again, you need to make sure you wait till all of your grades have posted, or at least your most recent grades. Okay, if you're in a current semester and spring semester and you're applying to a February or spring match, obviously you won't have your spring grades posted, so you'll just want to wait for your fall grades to post before you request that transcript. Personal statement. So this is essentially a document that, well, I'll talk more detail about it in a minute, but it's all about you, why you're a good fit for their program. It's quite an important document to include and will take you some time to draft and put together. You will also need an updated resume. So if you don't have a current resume, that's something that you'll want to complete and update in order to put it on your application. References, which I'll get to in just a moment and what it looks like, but you will need 3 references for your application. You'll put their email address in the reference section, and as soon as you hit submit in that section, it will then send that individual a request on your behalf to complete a reference for you in DICUS. So you don't actually have to collect said reference or upload it yourself. You're just going to submit the information, the names of the individuals who will provide you that reference in DICUS, and then DICUS will send that information directly to that individual. Okay. The general rule of thumb on how or which individuals to get as your reference is 2 professors and 1 professional reference. So these can be any professor or any faculty that you have enjoyed their course, you did well in their class, that you have a rapport with, and it's not uncommon to, go back and get one of the professors you had very early on in your academic career. So maybe you really liked your 142 or your 241 faculty. You can go back and ask. It doesn't have to be a current faculty member that you have right now. 1 professional should be somebody that you work for, a supervisor, or somebody who can speak to your professionalism. Okay, so a little bit more about your personal statement. You need to do your research on each program because you need to address why you're a good fit for that particular program. So if you don't know what that program's about, it's really hard to address this question. And you really do need to write a statement for each program. So if you're applying to 3 programs, you're going to have 3 personal statements. Granted, some of it won't change from statement to statement, like strengths and weaknesses. That's not going to change. But why you're a good fit should change from program to program, right? If you're applying to a VA program and also maybe a program that has a sports nutrition theme, why you're a good fit is going to be different for each program. So you need to make sure that you do your research and you write one specifically for each one. Just as a reminder, this is not a resume in an essay format. So it doesn't mean you talk about everything you've ever done in your life professionally and when you did it. This is more about who you are, maybe some of the experiences that you've had, but what you got out or what you learned about those experiences, rather than when you did it and who you met during that time in that work experience. Okay, this is really for an internship director to get to know you a little bit more. It's to set you apart from your competitors. It's also a way for them to, maybe your GPA isn't fantastic, but if you write a really engaging personal statement, maybe you will get called for an interview or be considered for their program. So this is not a document to take lightly. And it is one that you'll want to spend some time on. Okay, I already mentioned a little bit about your letters of recommendation and how DICUS will email them a password or a URL. Okay, they will assess you on a scale of 0 to 5. There is a Likert scale on different skill sets, like your communication skills or maybe your application of knowledge. And it's okay, particularly for your personal or your professional references, if they indicate 0 on your nutrition knowledge or clinical skills, because it's not expected that they're going to know everything about your knowledge in nutrition if it was a supervisor you had at Macy's or wherever you may have worked. Maybe they don't know anything about your nutrition background, but they can speak to more of your soft skills, communication, timeliness, interpersonal skills, and those are just as important as your knowledge in nutrition. Okay. Then they're also given a text box, which is where I typically cut and paste my letter into to describe your strengths and weaknesses, areas of improvement. So this is where we put our actual letter after we rank. And I'm going to show you a screenshot here of what this looks like. So this is what when you request a reference from somebody, this is what they open on their end. They're going to let the internship director know how long they've known you, their relationship to you, and then your knowledge, application of knowledge. And again, your professional references may not know the first 3 areas: nutrition content, medical nutrition therapy, food service management. I will be honest, when I write letters of recommendation for students, I don't teach any MNT courses at ASU. So I will indicate a 0 because I haven't observed. I don't know your skill set in MNT, but I probably have had you for a food service management course since I do teach that as well. So I can speak to nutrition content and the food service management, but not MNT. So you might think about this as you're selecting your faculty to write letters of reference for you and what courses you've had them with, what they can speak to for your skill set. Okay. Again, they're more information on what we rank you on: reaction to stress, perseverance, creativity, organization skills, working independently, your responsibility, maturity, and your overall potential as a dietitian, and then a summary. So these last areas are something that definitely your professional reference should be able to speak to. This is where you can cut and paste, or your reference can cut and paste their letter. So if you are describing this or you've asked a supervisor who's never done a DICUS application or reference before, you can just let them know in the strength and weakness text box, they can cut and paste their letter that they may have drafted for you. Unfortunately, the way DICUS is set up, there's no area to upload a document. It's all cut and paste. So this is where they would put that information. Okay, last but not least for this section is computer matching. As I mentioned before, that's your second section in addition to DICUS. And D&D Digital is where you rank your programs. And so this is where the matching occurs, and this is who you'll receive your match or no match information from. So I'm going to give you an example of kind of how this works. And I call this almost kind of like magic math. There is a very large, equation that goes into all of this, but I'm going to try to break it down to make it as simple as I can to make it make sense to you. So let's take, for example, if I applied to 5 different programs. I applied to Maricopa, Iowa, Florida State, ASU, and San Diego. And I ranked Maricopa as my top choice. So out of all the programs, that would be my preference. Maricopa, they have 6 slots or 6 spots available for interns. Their current ranking is 1 through 7, they note, and I happen to be their 7th ranked individual or candidate. So as it stands right now, I would not match with Maricopa because I am not high enough on their ranking system, despite the fact that I ranked them 1. I don't fit, or I'm not in that top 6 slots, so I wouldn't match to that program. However, Sam, Ann, Mary, Dave, Mike, and Sarah have also applied to a whole bunch of other different programs as well, and they've ranked their subsequent programs in addition to Maricopa. And let's say Sam, who Maricopa ranked number 1, Sam maybe ranked Maricopa as their 4th choice. And they ranked maybe the San Diego VA or some other program as first, and they happen to match with that other program. Now, Ann becomes their top, Mary becomes 2nd, Dave 3rd, Mike 4th, Sarah 5th, and now I'm in the 6th spot, which means I would then get a match with Maricopa, and I would get a spot. Okay, so this is a very challenging because of the fact that you have not only how the program ranked you, but all of the applicants that applied to that program, how they ranked the program, as well as how they ranked other programs that they applied to. So you potentially could be ranked, 18th on a list and get matched. Now, do you ever know where you were ranked? No. And do you need to know? No, you don't. All you need to know is if you matched or you didn't match, okay? You only get one match, and this is very important to note. You either match to a program or you don't. You don't get matched to Maricopa, Iowa, and Florida, and then you get to decide. So this isn't like when you applied to colleges, and maybe you applied to 10 and you get onto all 10, and then you figure out which one you really want to go to. That's not the case here. You either get into Maricopa or you don't. You get into Iowa or you don't. You get into Florida State or you don't. So you really need to consider when you're applying, if you're applying to a program you're kind of like, I don't really want to get into this, but I'll apply just to see. And then if you happen to match with that program and then say, no, I don't really want to go there, and decline it, you are essentially eliminating chances for you to get into a program in the future, because you have to self-identify in the future if you've ever declined a match. And programs will not take a risk on you if they know that you've declined a program in the past, because there's a likelihood that you'll decline a program again. And these spots are coveted. There's not a lot of them, as you're probably seeing. So they don't want to dilly-dally with students who change their mind at the last minute. Thus, it's really, really important that you only apply to programs that you want to get into, and once you get a match, you accept that match, regardless of the program that you match to. Hopefully it should be a program that you want to get into, because you shouldn't be applying to a program that you don't want.